Okay, in this video we're going to review HTML. So first thing we're going to do is go to Repl.it, Repl.it, and we're going to log in. You should be logged into your Google account, so we're going to use that. And then we're going to create a new Repl.it, and naming things is the hardest thing in programming. We're going to choose HTML for our language. This little symbol is the symbol for HTML5. It's a cool little logo. And I'll name this HTML review. And it's loading our files. What we got here is 3 files on the left hand side: index.html, script.js, and style.css. So this is kind of a common structure for a really super basic website. Let's review our skeleton. So this is our HTML code that was generated by Repl.it in index.html. The first thing we see is the doctype. This is the doctype definition for HTML5. It just tells the browser that you're using HTML5. And then here's your code. The root tag is HTML tag, and that's just a common thing in markup language. Everything goes inside of that. We have a head and we have a body, and these 2 tags are important for HTML. In the head tag, you put all your meta information about your website. It contains the title, some meta information about like encoding and stuff. You can also link your CSS files or external libraries, whatever you need. It's basically for information about your web page. Inside the body tag, we place the content. Now we have a script tag in here, and that's really common practice. You can put script tags inside the body tag. Even though you don't typically see the code on screen, it's just best practice because it allows the content of your page to load before your scripts. That prevents the blank screen from being displayed to your users while all of the head content and external files are loaded to the user's browser. Okay, so let's write some basic content here. So if I want to write something that's going to show up on screen, I have to type inside the body tag. So I'm going to write the word hello and press run. And here we go. Inside Repl.it, in the little preview browser, I can see the word. It's just plain text. It hasn't been marked up, so let's use some HTML tags to mark it up. If I add a p tag to the word, oops, I'm just going to follow a real simple thing here. So I've got my content inside these 2 tags, and the tag I'm using is p element, which stands for paragraph. Now if I run this, it looks exactly the same, but you might have noticed that the hello moved down a little bit. That's because the p tag has a little margin around it by default. Let's add a heading. So the top level heading is called H1. So you can see I've got my left and right arrows, and then inside it is the element H1. And then notice that on the closing side I put a little slash, and that's just how it works. Here we go. So when I refresh, you can see heading 1 is bold, large, and it has a margin around it. So that's basically how tags work. You usually have an open tag and then a closed tag with content in the middle. There's a couple of situations where you're not going to have a closing tag, like HR, which is a horizontal rule. There's no content that goes inside here. There's no words or anything, so it's just a one-sided tag. A lot of times you might see people do this, and it's got a little slash inside the opening tag. Looks exactly the same, still works. It's just another way of writing HTML. It's got a little bit of optional syntax sometimes, but it's totally fine to just write one-sided tags this way, unless you're like getting into something like JSX and React, which we will, but it's a ways off. Now besides your element, you can also have attributes that further define your tag. Let's go inside this hello tag. I'm going to copy it. And we have hello twice. Looks exactly the same. But inside the first p tag, I'm going to add the class attribute. And I just named it hello. So this is an attribute that just provides like a name to my my tag, and it just allows the browser to differentiate between these two elements. So I've got one p tag that's hello and another p tag. Well, they both say the same exact thing, but the first one has a class applied to it. Looks the same here, but if I go into my style .css and I write a little CSS, I can change a property. Let's change the color to red. And now I can see the first p tag is red. Now I don't have to name it hello. I can name this class whatever I want. So let's name it foo, and it will no longer be red because a class selector was looking for a class named hello. If I change this back to foo and rerun it, now we've got the red again. So I can also write CSS to change all the p tags, but we'll get into that when we review CSS. Alright, so let's take this and delete my content there, and now we're going to add some semantic tags. So back in the old days of the web, you had two container tags. You had the div and you had the span. And you still have those tags, but we have some semantic tags that effectively allow you to divide up your page into specific sections. So let's create a tag called header. And we can create another tag called main. And we'll create a third tag called footer. Okay. So when I run this, I'm not going to see anything because there's no content in the body. But let's add some text. Header, and then I'll add the word main, and then I'll add the word footer. And when I run it, I should see these three pieces of text. Now, they don't look like very special because I haven't marked up the words, but they're in these tags here, which are just the sections of my body tag. So if I wanted the word header to look like a heading, I'd still need to wrap it in my h1 tag. There we go. Okay. So a lot of times you can just put these tags on their own line just to create like a little bit of a better visual for your code when you're editing it. And what we want to do is start building a page. So let's call this polls app. And we'll create another semantic tab called nav. And in here I would have all the links for my web page. So let's say home. Let's create a little list of tags here. Whoops. Home. And then we'll have another one for about and contact. These are kind of standard pages that you'd see on any website. Now here we'll have our polls content, and then in our footer we'd put our like copyright information and stuff like that. So let's create a character entity, copy, And this is going to create the little copyright symbol. We'll put the year, 2020 still, and then our name. So Jeff.how. Okay, let's see how this looks. There we go. It doesn't look super pretty, but it's a start. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to want to create these pages. Now I can create another page by clicking Add File and then naming it. So let's create another page called about.html. And here I'll just say about this app. Okay, so now that I've created that, I just want to preview it. So let's jump back into our index.html and we're going to create a link. So in the about text, I'm going to add an A tag and I'm going to add an attribute just like I did with class, except I'm going to use the href attribute. And I'm going to close this tag on the other side of the word about, and inside the quotes I'm going to write about.html and then run that. Now it shows up as a standard link, and if I click the word, it loads the about page about this app. The last thing I wanted to talk about is where can you find information about tags. There's a couple of resources that are really common out there. If you Google how to create a heading in HTML, you're probably going to come to this result, which is w3schools.com. You can search this website for any tag. So let's search for H1. And then that link follows, it leads to a description of the H tags 1 through 6, how to use them. It's got examples, and it's a pretty nice, easy to use website for beginners. The next resource is the Mozilla Development Network. That's developer.mozilla.org, and you can also search for tag information here. If we search for H1, it comes to the Mozilla's definition for the heading tags and has examples and information about the usage. It's a really great resource once you start getting into it. There's accessibility concerns. There's a lot of great information about the spec, the HTML standard, browser compatibility. The MDN website is a little bit more in depth than W3 Schools, but it's a really great resource. So that's my HTML review. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.